Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing Tales of the Walking Dead. So Tales of the Walking Dead is an anthology series set in the Walking Dead universe. I have playlists for The Walking Dead's main series, Fear the Walking Dead, and the two-part limited series, World Beyond, so you can check those out if you want to first. And in case you're wondering, yes, I'm fully aware of the news regarding all the upcoming Walking Dead spin-offs, such as the Rick and Michonne miniseries, Isle of the Dead, or Dead City, or whatever they're gonna call it. The Daryl and Carol spin-off now being a Daryl spin-off. And I've heard rumors that Season 8 of Fear the Walking Dead is gonna be the last one. I really hope it is, and I hope they at least end that series on a high note. Anyway, back to Tales of the Walking Dead. This spin-off comprises of 6 episodes, with each one telling its own individual story. And what did I think of it? Well, I was disappointed! Yeah. Now don't get me wrong, there are some enjoyable episodes in here, but the overall package is just kind of lackluster. I'm not going to review this the way I review pretty much everything else I've covered on this channel. I'm going to go episode by episode because there's only 6 episodes and they tell their own individual stories, but I'm not going to get into spoilers in case you somehow haven't seen this. So let's get into it. Episode 1 focuses on Joe, played by Terry Crews. Joe is a lonely man living in a bunker prior to the events of the initial outbreak of the zombie apocalypse way back in the beginning of The Walking Dead, but he sets out to embark on a road trip to meet an online friend. Along the way, he encounters Evie, played by Olivia Munn, and because she's on a similar mission, she ends up joining him. This episode was good for the most part. It was nothing amazing, but it was a nice deviation from what we were used to, you know? The tone was much lighter, and it was weird seeing these two actors being the biggest names in the cast on this show. It was an obvious tactic to give this show's ratings a bit of a kickstart, but it backfired, as you can imagine, given the declining popularity of The Walking Dead as a whole. But it was a bit slow at times. The ending was fairly predictable, and at one point, John and Evie even visited Terminus from season 4 of The Walking Dead's main show, but the writers didn't do anything with that. It's just there for a cheap reference and that's it. But still, the episode was decent, and I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Episode 2 is an even weirder one. You know, at first I didn't like it, but it has grown on me since. It's essentially a Groundhog Day scenario, and it's even more comedic than the previous episode. It focuses on Gina and her boss, Blair, who Gina cannot stand. Just like the previous episode, I found this one to be pretty decent. It's just that one of the big selling points with this episode was the return to Atlanta, where it all started back in season 1 of The Walking Dead. And they didn't really do anything with that. Also, Kevin L. Johnson, who you might remember as Sam from Ozark, wasn't really given much to do. Plus the episode clearly needed a bigger budget in some areas. But it's still fun and enjoyable, and the ending has sparked a couple of theories about why this Groundhog Day time loop is even a thing. You know, why are all these characters in this situation? So yeah, it was pretty decent. I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. Episode 3, which is one of the best episodes of the show, focuses on Alpha, who we all know as the main antagonist for seasons 9 and 10 of The Walking Dead's main show, and she's played once again by Samantha Morton. We get a glimpse of her life as the apocalypse first came about. It's much darker than the first 2 episodes and is more akin to the overall tone and aesthetic of The Walking Dead. And, you know, I enjoyed pretty much everything about the episode, but I just didn't like the ending. You know, as far as the history of the Whisperers is concerned, there's a revelation that comes off as more of a massive retcon that felt absolutely unnecessary, at least in my opinion. But it was still a great episode, and Samantha Morton knocked her performance out of the park as usual. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. So the fourth episode is probably my least favorite episode of the show. It's not terrible, but it was just okay, I suppose. It focuses on Dr. Everett, a reclusive scientist who is observing and documenting his research on zombies in general. He comes across Amy, a stranger who is trying to get back to a community that she was separated from, and so they take a trip, and this leads to all kinds of chaos. The problems I have with this episode are that it does retread some familiar themes and elements explored in the first episode with Joe and Evie. The episode drags in the middle. I mean, there's literally a sequence of Dr. Everett and Amy walking, and it goes on for like 10 minutes. They talk about a lot of interesting stuff, but that scene really overstays its welcome. Plus, Amy as a character, I just couldn't stand her. I get that she's meant to come off as annoying at first, especially to Dr. Everett, but I think the writers went a bit overboard with that. But the ending was good at the very least, even if I kinda saw it coming. And it's one of the darker episodes of the show, and rightfully so. But none of that was enough to make up for all of its deficiencies, so I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. Next up is episode 5, and this is easily my favorite episode, as I'm sure it is for most people out there. It just has so much going for it. Basically, it focuses on Davon, who's played by Jesse T. Usher, who you probably recognize as A-Train from The Boys. Davon wakes up with a head wound and temporary amnesia, kind of like Jason Bourne, and is shackled to a talking zombie, something I've always wanted to see in this universe. So if you have too, well, there you go. Aside from that, the story is like a mix of Get Out and Midsommar. So it takes inspiration from art house horror. There were flashbacks and they had this retro kind of film grain look to them, and the ending was perfect. So yeah, this is definitely the best that the show had to offer. I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10. But unfortunately, the show didn't end there when it should have, and we ended up getting one more episode, and not a very good one in my opinion. Some people probably liked this one more than I did, and if you're among them, that's fine, more power to you. This one revolved around a couple who I didn't really care about at all. You know, they stay at this woman's house for one night and then things go horribly wrong, and the story takes a very supernatural turn from that point onwards. So if you're into stuff like the Conjuring movies, I guess this episode is for you. But yeah, I didn't care for these two characters at all. It was very tropey. Every time it looked like something terrifying was about to happen, they just cut away from it. And it felt like it was taking forever to get things going. You know, it was just over 40 minutes, but it felt like an hour. On the whole, it wasn't terrible, but it was just okay. So I'll give it a 6 out of 10. And yeah, those were my thoughts on Tales of the Walking Dead. I don't know if this is gonna get a second season. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd love to see more stories set in this world, but the ratings have not been very good, so yeah, we'll see what happens. My overall score for the show will be at the end of the video as usual, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So next time, I'm gonna be doing a retrospective for Slipknot, since they've got a new album dropping at the end of the month. So look forward to that in about a week's time. And yeah, that's it. Thank you all for watching, guys. Please be sure to like the video, share and subscribe, ring the bell, take care, and I'll see you soon.